Elizabeth and Ethan Finkelstein, welcome to the show. They started an Instagram account in 2016 called Cheap Old Houses. And apparently, there are a lot of us out there, I am including myself, who absolutely go gaga for old historic homes. The Instagram account blew up, it grew into an HGTV show, and now a gorgeous book, all of the same name, Cheap Old Houses. And let me just say, I was just talking with you before we started recording about how truly beautiful the entire book is. The photographs are wonderful. The artistry of the photographer really shines through. Shout out to Kelly Marshall. Congratulations and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andra,
Thank
for having us
you.
on.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
Kelly's photos are beautiful. And she really makes magic. One of the things about our book and about Cheap Old Houses is that they're never done. And a lot of the houses that we put in the book, we were so captivated by the story and the people. And we were looking to really show a wide variation in the movement and the world of cheap old houses. But some of them I was a little worried because I'm like, will these houses photograph well in their unfinished states? And when you send a good photographer, she can make everything look like magic. And it's just re-seeing these homes through her eyes was amazing.
Some of the homes where the wallpaper is, half peeled off and that kind of thing. I hope those people never change that. It's so beautiful. And it brings to mind homes that you see in Europe because they're even older than our homes often. And there's just this gravitas that those homes have, that you have found them in this country as well. So let's embrace that. We've got a lot to talk about, but first I just have to ask you, Elizabeth, I know that you have a background, I think, in historic preservation, but why did you even start this Instagram account? I mean, you probably didn't know what it was going to grow into it at the time.
That is absolutely true. No one looking to make money starts a business called Cheap Old Houses.
Yeah,
we started it because we have a soft spot for fixer-uppers, and quite frankly, no one in this country can afford a house right now. And we felt that pain, and we felt the fact that people of our generation that were saddled with so much debt already and were priced out of the house game. And this was even before the market did what it did.
Yeah, it's been going for a while, yes.
That, it was kind of the coming together of the forces of this being a generation that wants something unique and interesting, seeing all of these homes that need people to invest in them. And at the same time, I think feeling like we're stuck and we can't have a house, and how do we do this? We always say, I think the fact that we have nearly 3 million followers is something we never thought would happen. But the idea that it took off doesn't surprise us, because we're not alone in feeling this way, that we want something that's been promised to us as part of the great American dream.
Yeah.
And it's not accessible to us.
This idea of taking on a project like this, it's really taking control of your life. It's really saying, I don't have to have life happen to me. I've got agency here. And so that really came through.
I love that you said that. I think that to us, this really is about changing lives. And it's not something that everybody who talks to us about this book picks up on, but I think at its heart, that's what this is really about, is people searching for purpose and finding it through the restoration of these homes.
Yes, let's jump into this, because I want to spend a lot of time on my very first question to you. You say, we believe that you're being sold the wrong American dream. This is the story of a counterculture. What do you mean?
I think when we look at the world of TV, and when we look at the world of magazines, and we look at the world of Instagram or Pinterest or any of these online platforms, we are being sold an interior design dream that is really about consumerism and about never feeling like we have enough. Yeah. So we need more.
When you break down what the American dream, the cost of the American dream, right? It's debt. It's getting a starter house, and then getting a bigger house, and then getting a bigger house. And we have these cultural things built into our heads. it's waste. I think the design industry needs to take some responsibility for the amount of styrofoam
Oh,
and the amount of gutting and throwing things in landfills and keeping up with trends that now, because we have such access to design and access to media, trends move so quickly.
right.
You know, back in the day, I mean, the Greek revival style of architecture lasted like 50 years in this
Right,
country.
right.
Now it would be like, well, that was 2023. Now we're in 2024, totally
Yeah.
different stuff. And so the cost is our environment, the cost is our pocketbooks, the cost is, you know, extreme debt, and the cost is always feeling like you're never caught up and you're never there. And working with materials that haven't stood the test of time, that are cheaper and not necessarily supporting local economies, that is important. So I think when we talk about this concept of the American dream, it's getting back to sort of that wholesomeness of investing in your own community, learning how to do things with your hands that give you a sense of satisfaction that you don't need to get by like some, you know, $10,000 sofa in a book that you're never going to own.
Right, right. You both have really, there's like threads here that I want to pull. So let me start by saying that the way I talk about this sometimes is to say that the problem with interior design is that it's product driven and it starts with the products. That's kind of how we've been conditioned.
I think our design process, if you will, it always starts with the architecture. When you look at historical architecture and you look at architecture that is respected from the outside in, everything's lined up. Everything has this perfect symmetry. I still think that those continuities should matter from the outside in.
Yeah, it gives the whole house cohesion. And I think a lot of people, that's what they're missing. That's what they're lacking, actually, is a feeling of cohesion when they come to me and they say, my room is off and I don't know why. And when you have a newer home that really has no architectural personality, it has no architectural stamp on it, it really is hard, I think, especially if you have no training whatsoever, to give it that feeling. But that's the newer stuff. Let's keep talking about the older stuff. You mentioned that most of these homes that are featured in the book aren't necessarily the most fantastic of their time. Were you seeking out more modest or more middle-class homes on purpose? I mean, it must have something to do with this American dream you're talking about.
I have a master's degree in historic preservation, and preservation policy up until now has focused very much on saving the important houses. And definitely in the last several years with I think an awakening of the fact that our country was influenced by many different cultures. And we also need to be thinking about all the stories that make up American history and not just one narrative that's been told so far. Now, when it comes to the everyday American home, what we're finding is that the most typical homes in this country tend to be the most vulnerable to being demolished because there's nothing special about them. The singular standing incredible homes are great in their own right, but the true story of this country are the everyday homes. And gosh, I just feel like even in our area, it seems like every few weeks we drive by one and it's just all of a sudden gone. You know, it's been torn down.
It's gone.
No one said anything. No one cares. And we feel so deeply about these homes. But there has been a little bit of a reawakening about that on the ground and the kinds of homes people are buying.
Well, and it aligns with the fact that they're affordable.
Right. We live in a very vast country and there's many different places that cheap old houses exist. And we really wanted to seek out and help people find their own perfect little dream house and really give that house new meaning.
Well, and it's sort of like the fabric as a whole that creates the environment and not the singular buildings. It's when you drive through a town and there's a language. It's just like the language of where we live.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that adds to the sense of place, which I think is another thing that tends to be overlooked, not understood, missing when people are house hunting, looking beyond just the house, but what's the community like, and what's the feel of can you walk places? Can you, how close are you to your neighbors? And there's no right or wrong answer to that, but that matters because it's going to affect your everyday life, the language of the community. So I love that word. Sprinkled throughout the book are these pages called Cheap Old Houses Manifesto. And there's like 4 or 5 of them. It's an interesting word, manifesto. And I'm assuming that what you mean by that, you're kind of pointing out a foundational principle or through line that you found in all of these homes and their owners and through your own experiences. So the first one is probably my favorite because it's about going slowly and taking your time, perfectly aligned with my own slow style philosophy. It's certainly more affordable when you don't revive or renovate an old home all at once. But what are other maybe more intangible benefits that you can gain by going slowly that you've found or that you've heard from these other owners?
First of all, I firmly believe you should live in your house for a long time before you spend a ton of money renovating it, because there are things that when we moved into our house, I thought I hated and I couldn't live with. And now they're like some of my favorite things. So I think it's important to understand the cadence of your house and how you live in it. So I think you'll make better decisions. You'll be able to save money. I think too, if you're willing to take it slow, you might be able to hire someone who maybe isn't the fastest person at it, but is able to do it right. Ethan, I think you have a lot to say about this too.
I think as a perfect example, we had reclaimed the slate off of the roof. Now, if you went fast, you could put an asphalt roof and it would last, 25 years, 30 years. But our slate roof, this slate has been around for 100 years probably, and we're going and taking the time and hitting each piece of slate, and we're seeing if it's solid enough to withstand another 100 years. We're actually saving money long term. This is a material that was already on the house,
right?
And for anything that we didn't have, we're reclaiming it. So we are spending more on time and labor and the time to do it, but we are gaining so much. For us, this is a house that we will live in forever. That just kind of speaks to a small thing that we are doing currently that is not a fast design trend. It's going to look gorgeous.
Yes.
And it will last, generations. So anyways, that's kind of like but that's the whole ethos, I think, is everything. If you take a little bit more time, then you're always building quality. And I think our culture we have been all consumed by everything quick. We want, our food delivered from Uber, whatever it is. And I think it's probably the most satisfying thing is to build something actually in physicality, not on a digital thing that is going to withstand past our lifetimes.
And a lot of go ahead.
So we've talked about the benefits of going slowly. We've talked about the saving money, and we've talked about the fact that you're not adding to a landfill because you're reusing and you're choosing materials that'll last a lot longer. What about the purpose side of going slowly? I am assuming there's a tie-in there too. I mean, what do you gain in terms of psychologically or emotionally when you take this kind of time?
It just gives you such an appreciation, and it makes you want to take care of things when you see how long it took to put them up. The other thing is that, yes, you could get a new material, you could get it delivered overnight, you could toss the whole old thing, you could put it up. And then your money is going to Amazon or wherever you got the thing from, and not to the hours spent by a craftsperson who lives near you and that money goes directly back into your economy. Right. You're keeping the art alive. You're keeping the skill alive. You're employing someone. Yeah. It might shake out the same at the end of the day, but it's where you're putting your money.
One of the things that keeps me from driving across the country and buying one of these cheap old houses that you put on Instagram, which, by the way, the number of people that do that is, I mean, you're making the ripple effect of just your Instagram account alone, let alone your TV show in this book. The number of people that have said, I need that house. I live in Arizona and I'm going to move to Michigan because I just saw this house for $85,000. But
what keeps you from it?
Yeah, what keeps me from it? So I've been here for 17 years and my neighbors have become some of my best friends. And as I've grown older, I've realized that that really matters. I can't take it for granted that you're not necessarily going to meet people that you're going to click with every single time you move. Have any of the people that you've come across moved across the country, completely new community, and then struggled with that aspect a little bit?
I think we are perfect examples of this. We
Okay.
just recently moved about 2 years ago, and we were the people who bought that house, the house that everyone
Oh,
knows, and then they want to know more, and then they
right.
and there's actually this almost curiosity to an instant connection that you can make when you are buying one of those houses that I'm
The
putting it in
crumbling, falling
quotes,
down, who'd be crazy enough to buy it. Yeah.
and or it could be a large house, or it could be crumbling down, or it could be just a house that everyone has noticed that had been sitting. We've just met so many people, and I think we're almost all living in these little bubbles that we all exist in.
Yeah.
And it's been the most rewarding experience for us to have moved and to find new friends and to really find our people.
I can picture people coming up to you because people who've been in that community for a while, they're actually thankful, I think, that you're taking the time to save something.
I think too, we've gotten a lot of like press, and there's a lot of like sexiness around the idea of like people seeing a house on Instagram and moving across the country. And that
Yeah.
and that has happened. And in this book, we focused on a lot of those people because I was just personally so interested in that moment that you walk into that house
Yes.
and you're like, gosh, I would like sell my soul to save this.
Right.
But then that moment where you sit down with your spouse and you're like, so we're actually doing this, and you actually call your realtor and you actually put an offer on, and you actually buy plane tickets. That was so fascinating to me that this
Yeah.
is that people do this, and then they found something on the other side, and it's incredible. Saying that, by and large, the majority of people that have purchased houses on our Instagram feed have not like blindly flown to some place they've never been to. I think what we're trying to get people out of the mentality of is that the idea of location, 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 especially in this post-COVID world, doesn't have to mean Manhattan,
Right.
LA,
Right.
Austin, like, I don't know, these
The big ones. Yeah.
handful of extremely overpriced places. It also isn't just a move to rural America. I mean, that's what we did, but a lot of the cheap old houses portrayed in the book, and a lot of people are moving back to sort of different cities that have been overlooked in the past. There are people that don't want to live on a farm on 400 acres. They want to be in a walkable community with people, and there's beauty in that too. So there's kind of like all different types of cheap old houses.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you pointed that out. All right, let's move on to your home, because we've been talking about it a little bit here. Tell us about it. Why'd you fall in love with it? What have you taken on so far?
So our house it's a Greek Revival cape, and it's 1.5 stories. It's a house that sits on 10 acres, and it has a brook next to it. There was a barn across the road that had been falling in, and many of the windows were kind of cracking and broken, and the grass was just, it was a hayfield, really.
Yeah.
And then in the back there was a cemetery from the 1700s, and there's a little pond in the back, and the house was $70,000.
Oh.
And I think for me, the house really harkened back to my grandparents' house, which was a 300-year-old farmhouse in New Hampshire. And this was our little version of that. And it's just been a really amazing journey to see people who are attached, or relatives of the people who grew up here, saying thank you so much for saving this house.
Exactly.
And working on it. We have a lot to do. We're getting electrical in there, and we just brought some windows in today, and we're finalizing the roof and getting that all settled. So, but it's a super rewarding journe. Once we're gone from this world, we will be able to rest easy knowing that we made some impact on the world.
Yeah. And what about you, Elizabeth? Is there anything to add about what you love about the house?
I love everything about the house. We found out after our offer was accepted that there was a competing offer that had an escalator clause. And at the time, I didn't know what an escalator clause was.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
New thing. It's when the other buyer can say, we will bid $1,000 over whatever the other
Oh,
person is bidding.
oh, okay.
And that they were maybe or maybe not going to keep the house. And
Oh.
most likely would have torn it down. And
Oh,
find out this is one of the oldest houses in our area. And we just feel really grateful that it's in our hands.
yeah. So last question, describe your style. Like, let's talk more about the interior design now, or maybe even give us a couple of examples of architectural elements that you particularly love about it. The reason I'm asking this question is because I was very taken with everyone's aesthetic, all the personal different styles that you see going on throughout the book. And some people, it's a continuum. Some people really want to honor the time period of the home, and so a lot of the furniture they painstakingly looked for the right chandelier of the time period or the right style couch or whatever. And then other people are bringing in very modern things, which I love. I love that contrast because they're not getting rid of any of the architectural elements, but they're bringing in sort of a modern, modern art or different kinds of colors or mid-century furniture, but the house is Victorian or whatever. What about you guys? Like, where do you fall on that?
I love talking about this because, first of all, no one is doing any favors to old houses by saying that you have to live in a museum and the furniture has to be super uncomfortable because like we hadn't invented comfortable things at that time. And what I love about the people we picked for the book is that all of them have like a deep respect for their home and haven't ruined anything and have done no harm, but have all interpreted their version of it and have really expressed themselves through it. When we were selecting these people, a lot of people in the book have very different tastes than we do.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, this is not a book showing one particular style in my taste at all. This is not what this is about. And so the celebration of all the different tastes and how it can really express yourself in a world where I think a lot of people look at old houses and are like, oh, I don't understand them. It's complicated. There's going to be rules. There's going to be regulations. They're going to tell me what I have to do. And we wanted this to feel very much like a permission slip to express yourself through it and have a creative take. I personally feel like a house's history is not just the date it was built, but like all the things that have come after it. So we're very interested in the idea of just having kind of organic collected things in your home and if you love all of them, that's the uniting factor.
Right. So give us an example of like your favorite architectural element in your home, and then maybe a favorite corner or pocket or whatever where you've kind of put your stamp on it.
Well, I'm growing to like our kitchen more. So
oh yeah, tell us about that. You said at first you were like, oh, this has to be ripped out, but now it's your favorite. Tell us about the kitchen.
It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite, but I'm learning to adapt it to what I love. We have beautifully crafted 90s cherry cabinets in our house. I would never stylistically want to put them in this house. They don't go with the house. But they're beautiful. They're well made. There's literally no reason to rip them out and throw them in the landfill. So how do you work with it? We've incorporated furniture pieces. We just brought a sofa into our kitchen the other day to make it kind of cozier. We've switched out the hardware. We're putting lamps on the countertops to make it feel a little bit more organic and cozy. So I've really come to appreciate my kitchen more and realize that it isn't always a gut overhaul that you have to do in your house. Right. And that's, I think, probably if I had moved into this house and I had the money, which we didn't, I would have said, got this kitchen, do all of this. And I think we've lived in it long enough to know, like, we're fine. The food tastes just as good coming out of this kitchen.
I love it.
The longer you take, the better your intention is going to end up being. So that's kind of been our blessing, is waiting a little bit to really figure out what we want and how will this work for us. I
mean, a lot of people would feel like, we've heard many times, and we personally experienced it, is that limitations / restrictions that's where you get the most creative, right? That's sort of almost a prerequisite for being creative. Is you have some things you got to work around. I just want to mention the other thing sprinkled throughout the book is sort of a little primer, I would say, on different elements of old houses that you see over and over again. A little bit of history about why are they the way they are. So you've got newel posts, you've got the wavy glass. What else? Pocket
Okay.
doors, pocket. I mean, who doesn't love a pocket door? Right.
Wallpaper,
Wallpaper, butler's
vintage
pantries,
tile, yeah,
vintage
yeah.
tile, colored appliances. Yeah. So just so everyone listening knows, you got a ton of houses that you get to look through, but then there's these little moments that we also really learn something about how to take care of something, or what the history is of something, or why it's so important or valuable or whatever. So the book is very inspirational, but there's also, you learn a lot in the book too. It all looks amazing. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The things you noticed about the book in particular, I'm so glad that those are the things that you
Oh,
noticed about the book.
Good, good.